And the first presentation on the agenda is one from the West Virginia University Communication course about safety, pedestrian safety assessment and observations by Professor Maria Brand.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Maria Brand. I'm a professor in the Department of Communication Studies at West Virginia University. And this semester I've had the opportunity to teach a health communication dissemination course to 12 students. And 3 of those students are here tonight to share with you what we've been working on. We've been tasked with looking at pedestrian safety in the Morgantown downtown campus area, and also to develop and test messages to help increase awareness about this issue. And so very briefly, 3 students are going to present to you what they have found thus far. So first I'll turn it over to Zach Goldman.
Thank you for allowing us here to speak today. My colleagues and I are graduate students here in the Department of Communication Studies at West Virginia. We were tasked to look at pedestrian safety here in Morgantown. This project actually took on 3 different approaches, which my colleagues and I will explain here tonight. In general, a pedestrian or a bicyclist is killed every 4 minutes in the United States due to a pedestrian safety-related injury. Individuals aged 18 to 25 have the highest rates of pedestrian-related injuries and fatalities. This shows the importance to look at college students, which we did in our studies. More than 30,000 injuries occurred in 2009 as a result of pedestrian-related problems. More than 4,000 fatalities occurred out of these 30,000 injuries. The first approach that we looked at was my group, which was entitled Save a Life. We attempted to look at the risky driving behaviors associated with pedestrian-related injuries that often occur as a result of these injuries. Speeding and texting appear to be the most evident. The speeding is the 3rd leading cause of all car crashes in the United States. In West Virginia, speeding alone accounted for 356 fatalities due to speeding in 2009. Nationally, 13,000 fatalities occur every year as a result of speeding. Texting is also another prevalent issue. This issue, texting actually increases the chance of a crash by 23 times. So what our approach attempted to do was look at a quantitative and a qualitative methodology to examine this problem. The first of which we did, issued a survey, a TPB, or a theory of planned behavior-based survey. The theory of planned behavior actually examines the attitudes, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control related to the intention of risky driving or risky behaviors in general. We used this survey and analyzed the results to guide further focus groups in which we tested messages and also got in-depth perspectives on the problems here in Morgantown. We also conducted 2 individual interviews to look at personal stories and in-depth perspectives on these problems. So the results of our study actually showed that 48% of survey respondents indicated that they would speed in the next year here in the Morgantown area. 100% of our focus group participants stated that speeding was common in the Morgantown area, meaning that they had either done it themselves or had been part of a car that actually had done speeding in Morgantown. Our texting results supported that approximately 60% of survey respondents would text and drive in the next year. Out of this, 77% of our focus group participants indicated that they have texted while driving, and 62% indicated that they will continue to do so. So out of these focus groups and survey messages, we began to develop campaign messages that we are proposing. The first of which is the entire campaign is a knowledge-based campaign focused on did you know messages. The speeding is actually the contributing factor to 31% of all fatal crashes. That is a statistic I shared with you earlier. This message here, this design was actually evaluated throughout our focus groups and actually received the highest praise of all the messages that we proposed. Our tagline you can see at the bottom is "Save a life, don't speed and drive." This message on the right is actually a message that was developed as a result of the focus groups. Participants indicated that this similar message to this approach would actually be effective. This shows a phone with a "Did you know" campaign, as we said, and then the 23 times more likely to be in a crash when you text and drive, again with the tagline at the bottom. So to look at the second perspective in which we talked about, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Rebecca DiClemente.
Thank you, Zach. While many people are aware that risky or distracted driving is a problem in our society, it is lesser known, or at least lesser acknowledged, that distracted walking is also an issue for concern. According to Schwebo and colleagues, listening to music, talking on a cell phone, and texting on a cell phone while walking are all distractions for pedestrians that increase threats to their safety. This is a problem because, as Stavros and colleagues noted, distracted walkers fail to accurately process information that is necessary for them to cross the street safely. So my research group and I decided to focus on the prevalence of distracted walking in the Morgantown area. To do that, we conducted 200 intercept surveys, 3 focus groups, and 1 individual interview to assess and discuss the student perceptions of distracted walking around the Morgantown area. Later, we also conducted 2 additional focus groups to test 5 messages and images that we hope will decrease distracted walking around the area. According to our survey, we found that 20% of the students report that they think cell phone use is risky for pedestrians. 91% admitted to talking on a cell phone while walking, and 93% admitted to texting on a cell phone while walking. So it appears that while these students are often engaging in these distracted walking behaviors, they are not actually aware that they are risky. From the focus group, we found that 100% of those participants admitted to engaging in distracted walking, said that they could avoid distracted walking, but in order to do so, they would have to feel threatened, feel that there was an imminent danger, or be personally affected, such as being fined for their behavior, or even be involved in a pedestrian-driver collision in order for them to avoid these distracting behaviors. As you can see on the screen, we have our logo for our Please Cross Responsibly campaign that, if implemented, we hope would decrease distracted walking in the area. On the right is our top-rated poster design, which educates college students about the dangers associated with distracted walking. Now Eric is going to talk about the third approach to increasing pedestrian safety.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, my group's approach is entitled Give Drivers a Hand. Now, we took a bit of a different approach by focusing on the communication between the pedestrian and the driver, specifically by focusing and recognizing that a pedestrian intent to cross is difficult to recognize for the driver. Now, we modeled our campaign proposal after an intervention conducted in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, which is demographically and geographically similar to Morgantown. Now, it did increase pedestrian signaling, which is what we're trying to do, get pedestrians to stick out their hand, let drivers know they're crossing. And they did that with prompting, using signs at crosswalks, feedback, which we've adapted to incorporate social media, and reinforcement through reward and warning periods conducted by local law enforcement. Now, as you can see, the effects were pretty significant. It increased yielding and signaling by 20%. Now, our group conducted crosswalk observations in order to assess driver and pedestrian behavior and intercept interviews on the sidewalks in Morgantown to assess perceptions of beliefs about safety, attitudes towards signaling, and who they felt were most likely to yield at these crosswalks. Now, 38% of pedestrians believe drivers typically yield, but as you can see, 45% of drivers actually yielded at these crosswalks, which is pretty good, but it's still not good enough. It's less than half. 18% of these pedestrians reported being hit, but I feel the more important statistic is that 65% reported near misses. This is too many chances, too many opportunities to turn into a more serious statistic. Now, specifically for this study, 77% reported willingness to use a hand signal, which is really, really good, and 75% reported that would be easy to remember. Now, these are our messages, and they complement each other very well. Our tagline, Give Drivers a Hand. You can see our logo on the right, Yield with 5 fingers, which complements our pamphlet, which you have in your packets in the back, which has 5 great reasons to yield to pedestrians. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to talk today, and we'd like to answer any questions you may have. And if you'd like, you could also contact our course instructor, Dr. Maria Brand, and her contact information is on the slide.
Thank you. Questions for our presenters?
I just want to make a comment. I think these are all issues that I see every day downtown, and I just love your solutions. I think it's a great start, so thank you.
Thank you.
Or you want to mention a pedestrian?
The idea of making a hand signal, does that make drivers more ornery or something, that somebody's being so presumptuous as to put up a hand, or?
It's the fact that they actually recognize a pedestrian is going to cross. A lot of times, drivers will drive by and just not even recognize them. And if you don't recognize someone, you're not going to be willing to modify your behavior for them. So by putting your hand out there, I believe it was 33% more likely to be recognized and therefore have the driver yield for you.
So is this, I mean, are they regularly doing it? Was it Nova Scotia? No, was that yours?
Yeah.
Are they regularly doing
Yeah, I
it?
believe they're still using it and it's working effectively.
Mr. Manila?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment about the hand signal.
Yeah.
I experienced that. I was in Cancun, Mexico. We was on this busy 4-lane highway, and there was an island in the middle. They had a crosswalk. So we just stood there at the crosswalk. Cars were zooming by, and some guy yelled in Spanish. Someone translated it for me. Raise your hand. We raised our hand, and the car stopped.
It's more universal than we think.
Other questions?
What is the educational component that's going to flow from this? I mean, how are you going to get these messages out to drivers, students, non-distracted walking? What's the next step to implement this, if any?
Well, for the distracted walking campaign, we have designed 3 posters that we would hope to hang around campus, also potentially put on standing signs that are near crosswalks, near areas where students are actually crossing the street. And hopefully this would get our message across that it's important to avoid cell phone use while you're crossing the street.
Have you worked with our pedestrian safety board? Do you know about them, and are you working in collaboration with them?
We have other members in our groups that actually presented to them, I believe 2 weeks ago, so.
Thank you very much for the work you do.
Mr. City Manager, I would ask if we could have this put on a future traffic commission, if the Pedestrian Safety Board has had a chance to look at this, to bring this to a future traffic commission meeting.
I believe arrangements are being made for the next meeting in May, of which you're a part of the Traffic Commission. You heard us again because with both the Pedestrian Safety Board and the Traffic Commission, there will be an opportunity for some type of endorsement to execute some of the recommendations. So I think, Professor Brand, that would be accurate, yes? Very well.
Well, if there are no other questions, thank you for your presentation and this excellent work and this helpful information.
Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.